So one thing that I hear from other single women is, oh, I'm so discerning that I know right away, if a guy is right for me or not. And so they like don't even date because they're like, oh no, like I can tell that guy's not right for me or whatever. So one big aha moment in the program has been the idea of literally dating for fun, to just go out and meet guys and let every man teach you something.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Claimed, wherever you're listening or watching this. I have a special guest today with me. Her name is Nikki, and I'm so excited to have you, Nikki, here on the call because I know that your story in Claimed, so you are one of the students' clients in Claimed, and you've had quite a journey and quite a transformation, I should say. And it's I'm pleased to have you here on the show, not because of your journey and your transformation, but also because I think you have become someone in the program that women are really looking up to, and asking for advice. Like you were nominated as my top, because every month or so I have these guests, and the guests are women in the program like you who've been there, done that, who can share their journey. And as I asked for this month or the next month, who would you like to hear from? Most of the women said Nikki. So, that just shows that you've got some things to share, and you've been really vocal and open about your journey in the program. It wasn't an easy journey for sure, and we've been all kind of like, I for sure was definitely following the progress, let's call it. And then, it's so interesting. I find that most women who go through challenges, like your situation is challenging, and I'm sure you'll share with us a little bit about that. But the women who show up and do the work and go through the ups and downs and really are there for the good and the bad, they really get on the other side totally transformed. And you've been such an amazing, just someone in the group who's really there for other women and sharing the journey and like passing, I guess, the torch forward. So welcome, Nikki. I'm excited to have you here today. So let's just begin with you introducing yourself. Tell us who you are, and how did you find about my work, if you can still remember, because I know it's been quite a while ago.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I'm 40 years old. I was married for almost 20 years. I've got 4 kids, 17 down to 9. And, well, my husband and I started hanging out with another couple just all the time. Their kids were good friends with our kids. And just all of a sudden, one day, my husband and the wife and the other couple told us, oh, we fell in love with each other. Like they told me and her husband. And so that sent me into this total roller coaster. I thought my life was good and fine and all this stuff. And so it became um, this huge imperative to quickly learn, oh my gosh, can I save my marriage? What do I need to do? So I started like finding out more about relationship stuff. Like, is this my fault? Where did I go wrong here? Why did this happen? And so the concept of polarity came onto my radar really early on. And I started reading as many books as I could get. But even the books would say, this isn't book learning kind of stuff. Like you really can't learn it out of a book. They would say, you need other women, you need a support group, you need to like learn this in a community basically. And I thought that was so interesting, but I had no idea how to do it. And the more I was searching for polarity, of course, my, computer cookies start to catch on and they're sending me the right ads. And then your advertisement for the webinar popped up. And, I was just so thirsty and so desperate to learn anything I could about polarity that I'm like, okay, free webinar, like, let's do this. And so I hadn't heard of your podcast or anything before that. I went straight into the webinar and everything just resonated so much. It was all of the things that I had already learned from books, but showing me how to like pull it into a community and these relationships. And so I think even before I got on the discovery call, I was like, yes, I need this, because I had tried for so many months doing it on my own.
Yeah, thanks for sharing with us so openly that situation. I kind of
Yeah.
imagine like, how was that for you? And how did you deal with that without, having the tools that you have now? Because I know we've been chatting before and you're like, now I have the tools. So, and, of course, having four children, there's an added layer to that. And so, I'm curious. So before we jump into, what happened on the discovery call and why did you sign up for the claim program to work with us, with me? Tell me more about what I'm curious about. Why polarity was? Why did you? Because I mean, the world of relationship and dating advice is like so huge, from
Yes.
attachment styles to like, I mean, chakras and EFT and personality and love languages and stuff, like you
Right.
can choose your own adventure. But I'm curious, what really resonated with you specifically about polarity? Why did you realize that, okay, that is the issue here?
Okay, so I mean, this will get even more personal real quick, but you're faced with a situation like that where your husband says, "I'm in love with somebody else," and as a woman, you're like, "What are my options here? What do I do?"
Mm.
And a concept that had been on my radar for a while was the idea of polyamory, and so I foolishly jumped into and there might be other people that it works for, but for me, it was a foolish decision. But I thought, okay, let's give this a try where, like, rather than shutting it down, I say, hey, let's stay married, but go ahead and explore this other relationship. And so, in doing that,
Mm.
I also went on dates with her husband. And so we kind of had, trying to make it equal and whatever. And it was very, very interesting that when I went on dates with her husband, he would insist on being masculine. And so I got this new taste of things where he was like, no, let me walk on the outside when we're walking along a street, or no, I want to plan the dinner, or no, this and that. So things that I had been very used to taking charge of in my marriage, somebody else was suddenly stepping in and saying, no, actually, this makes me feel like a man if you will let me. And
Mm.
those were all brand new concepts, in almost 20 years of marriage, I had read other relationship books. I'd read all kinds of other concepts. I was much more familiar with those, but polarity was brand new. And that's really what got me started, is that I felt that with him. And then my husband was saying that he got to feel more masculine and more like a man with this other woman. And so I'm going, oh, okay, this is what this really
Mm.
boils down to.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and thanks for being open about this. I can only imagine, how. But in our program, I feel like once you finish the claim program and through modules, like your vulnerability is
Yeah.
upgraded, and you're like, well, this is who I am, and once you come on the podcast, it's like next level vulnerability 2.0. Because in our group and on our calls, we talk about everything. Okay, so here you are in that situation and learning about polarity and absorbing everything about it. And you stumble upon my webinar, and then you sign up for the webinar. And then at the end of the webinar, of course, there's an invitation
Yeah.
to sign up for a free discovery call where we talk about, where you're at, where you want to go, and how we can help you. And then tell us more. Tell us about the discovery call, if you remember what happened on the discovery call and why did you decide to say yes to the program?
Okay. Well, I mean, you're just going to learn all kinds of stuff about me today because I'm not necessarily a
Well,
normal
I already
person.
know a lot, Nikki, but I didn't know that story actually
Yeah.
about how it started for you. So yeah, I'm really curious.
Okay, so I'm turning a little bit red, but right before I got on the discovery call, I actually pulled a tarot card because I'm like, oh, that's kind of how I roll, is just into some of these different things. So the tarot card happened to be one for apprenticeship. So even before I got on the call, it was like
Mm.
these signs telling me, yep, this is where you need to go, this is what you need to do. And then when I got on the call, it was while you were on maternity leave. So I actually did a call with String, and I
Oh,
don't.
you did? I didn't know
I
that. Okay, cool. Yeah.
yeah, and so it was kind of interesting because I don't think he really knew the answers to my questions necessarily. Because I was like, oh, are there a lot of divorced women or a lot of like moms in the group or these different kinds of things? And he was just like, Yeah, I think there are. I think so. So, yeah, it was actually kind of comical that no, he wasn't
That's so
very
funny.
persuasive, but it worked out fine because I just had a feeling. I knew it was what I needed to do. The tarot card said so. I actually had a reading with a psychic the next day, and the very first thing she told me when I got on the phone, she's like, "Nikki, there's all of these spirits in my house and they're all saying the same thing." And I said, "Okay, what are they telling you?" And she said, "I don't know what it is, but they're saying do it. Like join whatever this is you're supposed to join." So it was really wild.
Oh,
Like
wow.
it was that level of like, all signs point to I just have to. So
Ah. So you didn't sign up on the call. You basically said,
no.
"I'm going to think about it."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all this sign. And hey, I mean, we have a different range of women in the program. I know that you are
Yeah.
quite spiritual, I guess if you can call it that way. Hey,
Yeah.
I have my own tarot card deck, and I
Perfect.
pull it, in the mornings. I know you're a little bit more into all of that stuff, into your spirituality and stuff. And I know when I was reading how you met your current partner. Like it was a wild story. I was like,
Yes.
what is this? All of the guides and spirits and stuff. And
Hmm.
yeah, awesome. Okay. So you signed for the program because you knew this was the right fit. And then now we dive into what were some of your like 2 to 3 biggest aha moments for you in the program?
Oh wow. It's really hard to narrow it down to just three. I mean, you saw recently in the group that I posted 10. But
So actually, before you go there, sorry,
yeah,
let me interrupt you. I'm just bringing up actually your 10 lessons learned in the Claim
perfect.
program, and I actually want to read that, and then let's talk about 1 to 3 of the ones that you feel are like stand out really strong to you. You feel like okay, this is it.
Perfect.
Just give me a moment here. So I'm just gonna go to my home. Um, 10. Oh, I know where it is. Hang on 1 second. Because it was so beautifully written. And I actually sent an email to all of the women who are, following me. And I posted on Instagram and stuff. And because it was just so beautiful. Okay, here it is. So I'm just going to read that quickly. You say, today I feel inspired to share 10 things I've learned in 10 months of Claimed. Though what those 10 things are will be a surprise to even me since I'm writing them as I go. Number one, always, always, always claim yourself first. When in doubt, when confused, when stumbling, when you find yourself wanting a certain outcome or worry what men think of you, and so on and so forth, focus on yourself. Give yourself what you're needing. Prove to yourself what you're worth. Number two, let go of the outcome. Seriously, just let go. And coming from you, that second point is like, wow, maybe we should talk about that a little bit more.
Yes.
Open your fist and let it fly away. No matter how certain you are that you know how the story should end. Nope, let it go. Otherwise, I'd still be tormented by my ex's flip flopping instead of partaking in the current feast of love I've got with my committed masculine man. Number three, trust that it's okay to take all the space you need whenever you need it. You do not have to date when your body isn't ready to date. You do not have to make peace with your ex husband co parent when your body isn't ready for that. You do not have to even text your exclusive committed masculine man when your body needs alone time. And then magically, when your body says you are, your relationships can snap into that blissful sweet spot in an instant. Number four, be vulnerable. This is what you're doing. This means admitting your feelings verbally and letting them show on your face. It means admitting that you can't and don't want to do everything. It means admitting that you need and want help and advice from men, even your ex sometimes. Number five, receive, receive, receive. Accept the help and advice and gifts and dates and favors and compliments and see how good it all feels in your body. Notice how you relax. Notice the relief. Notice the full joy of it. Number six, flow with every emotion. Take your relief to your mat so it really sinks in, or your gratitude, your resistance, your anger, confusion, bliss, exhaustion, sadness, whatever it is. Teach your body to welcome all of it. Be a conduit, letting your emotions wash through as they please. I promise you'll feel so alive. Number seven, create your ideal avatar via funneling and believe he exists. With every man I met in my funnel, I learned what I liked, wanted. I added the yes, please traits to my mental ideal avatar list and the no thanks traits to a do not repeat list. With my committed masculine man, I literally got everything I wanted down to the blue Audi that he drives that I really liked about an earlier guy in my funnel. Number 8, be unapologetically feminine. I used to believe I needed an occasion to wear dresses or skirts or jewelry or makeup. Nope, this has been my summer of all of the above. Don't even care if my CMM is in a t shirt and shorts. I'm in a skirt or dress 80% of the time. He loves it, and so do I, and it is incredibly sexy. Number 9, keep studying polarity and wild femininity. It doesn't matter how many books I read or podcasts I hear on it, I'm constantly learning more and improving my relationships because of it. And last but not least, listen to yourself, your body, your intuition, your heart. I am here to circle back to number 1. I know what's best for me when I'm centered and embodied and in touch with myself. When I'm not, I know how to stop and drop in as deeply as I can. This is where transformation happens over and over because it tells me to do another limiting beliefs flow or another wild woman flow or to play a certain playlist or to text my man or to message my support groups or whatever is needed. All your answers are there if you're brave enough to ask the questions. So beautiful, Nikki. Thanks for sharing that. So you shared that in our group, and oh my God, there's like 440 comments here. So what really stands out to you? What is something that out of these 10, or maybe you want to add something to it now, that were really, some of the biggest, let's say 2 or 3 aha moments in this particular program and this journey that you've done?
Okay, awesome. As you pointed out as you were reading them, letting go is so, so, so difficult. So when I joined the program, my husband and I were still trying to make things work. And, I jumped into lesson one about polarity, and I could see all of the instant changes. I had learned a lot from the books that I'd read, but then your program made it all really click in a new way, and I could see that he shifted as well. And so we did this dance at first where I saw, oh, as I change, he's changing, and maybe there's a way to make it work. And it was like we fell back in love again in those few months. And that was incredibly difficult because at the same time that was happening, he wasn't willing to let go of the other woman. And so it was like he was in love with both of us, and the polarity was in a way making it even harder on both of us. And so there came a point where I had to let go. I had to say for myself, it doesn't matter how beautiful this relationship feels and the love that's in it. If I'm not okay sharing him with somebody else, like at that point, I was very, very done with the polyamory. I was way over that.
Mm.
That was like an experiment that, in my mind, totally crashed and burned. And so I had told him already, like, no, I want to go back to monogamy or this marriage is over. Right. And so I did have to make a very difficult decision after I'd given it enough time to say, no, he's not letting go of her. So I have to be the one to say, all right, let's go ahead and get divorced. And so it was about a month after I joined the program that I finally said, yes, for sure, I want a divorce. And he was making plans to move out anyway. So it was kind of a mutual thing that we drifted apart. But at the same time, it was interesting that um, he felt like he was just going through a midlife crisis, and I did too. There were a lot of signs of like, maybe as he gets therapy, maybe as he lives alone and figures himself out, like maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need a separation and then it's
Mm.
going to work out again. So it was this open-ended thing of, yes, we're filing for divorce, and yet at the same time there was hope still, and that made it really, really difficult because I was just kind of waiting and watching, wondering, okay,
Mm.
if he gets therapy, is it going to change? And so I waited a few months. He was telling me, oh, yes, yes, for sure. I'm coming back. I want to be married to you, all these kinds of things. So I waited and I watched for signs that he was changing, that he was becoming more masculine, that he was really committed to this. And we gave it another go in the spring where we dated again. And I even put, the the post up in the group saying it was amazing at first. Like we went on a new first date, even though we'd known each other for 20 years. And it was like we were new people because I had learned so much and claimed, and I felt like a new person. I felt feminine and able to let go of the outcome and be surprised and just be playful and fun and so many things. And so that was wonderful to have that opportunity to see what it could look like with him. Um, and I don't regret that. I don't regret that I hung on that long, because I needed to see that for sure. With 4 kids, with 20 years of history, I wanted to
Mm.
see what it could look like. But in the end, he was the one that made the choice that he didn't want to. He wasn't committed to me. He wasn't committed enough to keep going. And that was finally where I got to let go and say, okay, this is how this works. If a man is not committed to you, it doesn't matter how magical it feels or whatever else. That's the point that I just had to step back and say, no, I really have to let go now. I gave it as many tries as it deserves. And now it's time to move forward.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. What a journey, Nikki. Okay. So letting go. One of the biggest aha moments. What else do you want to mention that you feel like has been a transformational point for you in the program?
Okay, this is one that has come up as I've talked to other single women, that I think has been really interesting for me in contrast to as I see and talk to other women in the program and notice what I've learned about it. Um, so one thing that I hear from other single women is, "Oh, I'm so discerning that I know right away, if a guy is right for me or not." And so they like don't even date because they're like, "Oh no, like I can tell that guy's not right for me or whatever." And so one big aha moment in the program has been the idea of literally dating for fun, to just go out and meet guys and let every man teach you something. And so, like you were reading in my post, there were even silly things like there was one guy that had a blue Audi, and I loved that car. And then, just put that on my list of, yeah, I think I care about what car he drives, kind of thing. And so, like the guys that I went on dates with, I was able to let go of the idea of, oh, I'm only going to go on dates with guys who totally fit, what I'm looking for. Instead, I just had fun. I went out with guys that I was interested in some way. If they had some quality that I thought, oh, yeah, you'd be really cool to hang out with for a night. Why not? Right. And so that mentality helped so much because I got to learn so much from every single date and just have a good time too. So, yeah, that was a
Mm.
huge one.
Yeah, and that's when you mentioned funneling, and I love that you said let every man teach you something because, the two of the premises we kind of collectively hold in the Klein program, well, I hold and then the container holds is that number one, every man is a teacher. And number two is every man that you're going to meet is going to be better than the
Yes.
previous one because you're doing the work and you're learning and you're really looking at these men as teachers. What is this man teaching me about myself? What else do I need to work on? Why is this triggering? Like it's really the dating field is really where I always say where the rubber meets the road is when you
Yes.
go and you see what's happening. And I love this that you bring out this attitude. I actually posted a video in our group yesterday about because a woman asked me, because we in the magnetism practice, there's this question that I guide all women to ask, am I open to receive what I want, which is, meeting my committed masculine man in no matter what form or shape it arrives. Like, am I
Yes.
open to receive the desire no matter what shape and form it arrives? And she was like, well, I'm not quite sure, but what does that mean? Like, does it,
Mm,
it makes me feel like I have to lower my standards and I
mm,
have to, you know, give up on what I want and stuff. And I had to explain that you're right. So many women come into this program are so rigid about, like, what do I want in a man? What are these red flags? And, we are watching the YouTube channels and the Instagram posts, and he's like, the 10 flags that he's not a committed man. Or, if he doesn't pay the bill on your first date, it's like, I'm done with, like, even that, like, you know, although I absolutely do agree that, a man has to, take you out and pay for your bill. But then we got to always look at, I actually did a video about this, what does a man think when a situation like this happens? Because men today, they don't know whether opening a door for you will be a compliment or an insult. They
Yes.
don't know whether splitting the bill will actually be an insult to you, which it is to so many women. But men are not mind readers, and so all of these situations, I just feel like that's why I hate that whole like texting guides and here are the red flags and all
Yes.
these labels and boxes. And, women today are just bombarded with all this information and are trying to, reply to a text message via some sort of a pre-written, pre-memorized, like it doesn't work. It works for a time, in the beginning, but then like you still get to show up. And that's not a good way to that's not the right foundation for a relationship.
Yeah.
So I love that attitude. That's what we teach in the program, like how to date. And a lot of women say, oh my god, I've never date I didn't know how to date before,
Right.
because we had this rigid idea, here's my checklist, and I go on a date and I'm like ticking the boxes, thinking about, are you my next husband, is this the right
Yeah.
flag, I don't know, instead of just really allowing yourself to have fun, because this is what dating is about, getting
Yes.
out of your head and into your body, and just really having fun with it. That's it. Like if you're not having fun and you're not excited to be dating, then you're definitely not dating in the right way. So
Yes.
yeah, I love that you said that. And so do you have another one for us, like the biggest third kind of aha moment for you?
Well, yeah, and it goes along with exactly what you were just saying. So I guess it was my number 10. My last one is you have to listen to that intuition. You cannot go off of a script or anything else. That's not how femininity works. Femininity is not a script. It's not, do this
Mm.
and don't do that. It's getting in touch with yourself and that authentic intuition that's going to tell you what choices to make, what things you need to speak up about when it's your own issue versus somebody else's issue. There's really no way to know that except to get into here. And that was one of the things from the very beginning in your webinar that attracted me to the program, is I could tell it was intuitive based. And like I shared with you, I like tarot cards and psychics and all the things. And so that was very, very important to me, that it wasn't just like, bullet points and guidelines of do this and don't do that. It's about, no, I want to return to myself and make sure that I am not overthinking, which is what I had been guilty of before.
Mm. I love that you said femininity is not a script, because that's what I see a lot in that,
Mhm.
in the whole, I mean, there's a whole thing about, how
Yes.
to be feminine, like Google into YouTube, right? And wear dresses and candles and this and this and that. And obviously for me, this has been an area that I've been studying and learning and developing. And through working with women, I've literally embodied this idea. Now I'm passing it forward that, femininity is not, again, you can burn as many candles as you want and
Yes.
wear as many dresses and even put makeup and like all of that. Of course, we talk about in the program as
Yes.
well. But unless you know yourself, like being a feminine essence woman and being feminine in your body literally means rediscovering who you are as a woman, right? Because we know that most women are feminine essence beings, and it's all about, well, how does feminine feel in my body, and how what does it mean to surrender, and what is it like when you talk about letting go? I'm sure a lot of women listening or watching are like, what the hell does she mean, right? And I am letting go, but it doesn't work. And so it's that um notion that, here are the tools to actually, well, you call it intuition, interestingly, I call it knowing yourself through embodiment tools. And so
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more about how through the program you were able to get to know yourself and get in touch with your intuition and who you are and what you want and not what other 10 women want.
I love that. I think one of the big things, as far as like why this program is so valuable beyond just the information, right? Beyond just the curriculum, is on those calls when you are having us drop in and learn embodiment by doing it, right? It's not something you can learn out of a book, because you have to
Mm.
drop in, and having a coach and having other women there, creating the space for that container to drop into your body. And I didn't realize how your body talks to you in symbols, how it talks in, colors and shapes and sounds and these different things that we go into in the program, that you start to realize how much is stored in your body that your body's ready to tell you if you were listening, right? And so, having been stuck in my head for so long, that was a huge connection piece for me, is that I knew that mental level of intuition where I would have words and ideas pop into my head, but I didn't understand the body level of intuition to where my body can tell me things that I need to do. And I'm still working on that. It's such an ongoing process to continue that embodiment, to getting more and more in touch with my body, restoring that relationship where I feel like I've been cut off at the neck for so many years, right? And so I hope that answers your question as far as, yes, learning those messages and how they come and how to interpret the messages from your body, because they're not in words. It's a totally
Yeah.
different language.
I love how you said restoring that connection, because we always talk about embodiment as a skill that we can develop, and we're all born with it. It's not like, it's we have a body and therefore we're embodied. We just need to learn the tools and develop that skill. So I feel like, women listening, right? I just have one more question about this. I feel like women listening and watching are like, okay, I just kind of understand what you mean, but can you give us an example? I think if you give us an example of, because you say images and colors, and they're like,
Mm.
what is this? What is this witchcraft or whatever? Can you give an example of a situation, or when we did a coaching session on the calls where your body really spoke to you, and this was something that you couldn't get out of a book, you couldn't think your way through it? Can you think of an example?
I do remember so I had a couple of one-on-one coaching calls, and in one of them, I remember feeling it comes in so slowly, right? You just are listening for what your body's doing. And so the first thing I felt or saw was a color, and it was brown. And then the coach will often ask for, okay, what texture is it? And it felt like wood, like bark, kind
Hmm.
of a rough texture. And then, okay, what's the shape of it? And that's when it started to become clear. I was like, oh, it's this little piece of, like, a twig, right? And it it dawned on me so quickly that I started crying. It was just like a symbol for me of how fragile and vulnerable I have felt. It was a symbol of, I've just felt like I'm this tiny little twig, that I don't have the support that I need, that I don't have,
Mm.
so many emotional things. And it could be that, I wasn't giving my body the support that it needs. Could it be that I wasn't emotionally supporting myself, right? So it's not like it's necessarily an external blame kind of issue. It just shows you, oh, this is what I need, like where my self love is lacking, so that you can then give that to yourself and say, oh, I need to support myself more. I need to create a better support so I don't feel like this fragile little twig that's going to snap at any moment. So it's those kinds of
Mm.
messages, right, where you have to step back and go, okay, what else do I need to give myself? How do I support myself so that my body won't feel like this anymore?
Yeah, I think by giving this example, you reminded me of why I love doing this work, because, for me, and obviously this has been my experience, but I've seen women time and time again, come into this program or dealing with whatever we're dealing with in life. And you know, most people, how we deal with situations and difficult stuff, and we're very externally oriented. It's always like, he said this and I said this, and it's all in the head and the story of it, and it's very externally oriented. And so when we do embodiment work, when we, as you said, reconnect with who we are, or we repair this relationship of what's going on inside of me, it also helps us get out of the story and the drama.
Yes.
We see women come into the program time and time again and start with, okay, what do I say to this guy, right? Like, how do I date? And I'm like, hey, hold your horses, like, this is not that kind of a program.
Right.
Of course we talk about that, but then the first questions I ask is like, where are you in the modules? How is your feminine flow? Because we know, and I've seen it, we're like 450 women by now, and growing every day. When a woman gets in touch with who she is with that intuition that you said, she starts to develop that capacity and that reservoir of answers, as you mentioned in your post, that all the answers are already deep inside of you. If only you were able to get in touch with that part of you that's buried deep down inside for so many years. And so it's interesting that, as we focus on how we feel, because most women don't kind of even feel anything as they start this
Right.
journey, we discover this whole world and we get so internalized. That's why I love doing this work, because when we get internalized, we take radical self responsibility. We stop blaming others. We excavate all of our shit and it all comes to the surface. But guess what? You have a community, you have a coach, and we're all in this together. And it's this beautiful blossoming that I see in you and all the women who are going through the program, showing up, and therefore being successful. It's like this beautiful blossoming of this woman who's sovereign in her being, who's like, it doesn't matter what you say, or you can do whatever the hell you want to do. I know who I am. And this is where the true feminine power is really, it has been for me and for so many women who've been through this journey. So thanks for sharing that, Nikki. That's really
Yeah.
powerful. So let's talk about where are you now? And, what is it, 10, 11 months after the program and having gone through this like crazy roller coaster, really, it's been quite a journey.
Yes.
Where are you now?
Oh my gosh. So I knew I needed to take a long break after my divorce to just focus on myself. So I spent several months waiting until I was ready to date, and then, going through the curriculum that has to do with dating until I felt awesome about it. I felt awesome about getting onto a dating app. And so that's what I did. I just picked one dating app that felt right to me, and I jumped
Which
on
one
that.
was it?
I used Hinge.
Okay.
Yeah, so I liked that one a lot. And I had great success with it where I had plenty of dates, to the point that I was scheduling out a little bit on some of the dates and just feeling great, having a really, really good time. But in the midst of that, it was having to deal with my ex, right? And he was still, there was enough back and forth where it was like he was trying to keep me on an emotional leash. And so I was going to go back really quickly to what you said about letting go is for sure not as easy as I made it sound, right? Like I had to go down to the absolute depths to say no matter what he's telling me, no matter what promises he's still making, or what little piece of candy he's holding out still, like that's not what I want. I had to make that decision for myself and say I'm going to move forward. And something that I noticed, because we do so much self-reflection in the program, was I realized I had a ceiling on the guys I was attracting on Hinge, where it was like I had purposefully or like psychologically or whatever made it so that none of them were quite as good as my ex. I wanted to keep them at a certain level so that it wouldn't threaten the
Mm,
possibility of my ex coming back, right? And so I knew this.
mm,
I knew what I was doing. I had to let go to the point of facing myself and saying, Nikki, you are self sabotaging. You are the one who's making it so you can't find somebody better. And so I really had like a morning where I just looked myself in the mirror basically and said, it's time for that to be done. Like we are letting go of the ex and we are letting go of this ceiling. Like I just basically told the universe, okay, I'm ready for somebody better than my ex. Um, and that was when my current boyfriend dropped in. Like I got the notification on Hinge right then, and I just kind of did this like, wait, what? Because I didn't expect that at all. But I could tell almost immediately from his messages that he was somebody so different than the other dates. And the other dates had been great. Like I had met so many really awesome guys, just nobody who quite was the whole picture, right? And so this guy, just the more we messaged each other, I was totally head over heels before we even went on a first date. And there's part of me that's like going through all of the things we learned and thinking, I can't get attached to this fast. Like, this is dangerous. And, so trying to like do the work and flow and make sure that okay, he's not the only guy out there. So, I would continually bring myself
mm-hmm.
back to, nope, just remember, work on yourself. Like, it doesn't matter. But I could tell right away that he was what I wanted. And so, yeah, by the time we went on our first date, we were both just totally into each other, and that made it move really quickly. But at the same time, I was having a good time funneling and flirting with other guys. So it was kind of funny that I had this, like, oh, I'm super attached to this guy, but I also understood um, that the way to not be too attached was to keep funneling and keep going out with other guys. And so it was kind of that weird period of like, okay, like I'm giving this a true test of all of the things that we learned in the program and saying, I'm just going to trust that this is for the best. And it
Mm.
was, because by the time he, oh my gosh, he launched into the greatest speech ever about like, you are the woman for me and I only want to be with you. And you get this like amazing moment when, as a woman, you are willing to wait for it, when you're willing to hold back and lean back and just let the man steer the relationship. And so I'm still, it's been 3 months now, and still in that amazing place of he steers the relationship and he tells me all of these dreams that he has for our future. And I just get to sit here in like my feelings and my playful, fun,
Mhm.
enjoyment of the relationship, instead of me being the one trying to steer things and trying to push him toward, oh, the next level of commitment or whatever. And so, yeah, it's a really, really good place to be.
Mm. So good to hear. Two questions here that I think are on women's mind. Number one, Nikki, is how did he react to you dating other men at the same time? And then two is you have four children and you have an ex in the picture. So how is that playing out, and how did he react to that? Because I think that stops a lot of women, from even
Yeah.
dating or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, those are great questions. Thanks. So, okay, to back up, one thing that I learned about him right away, he is 7 years older than I am. So he's 47, I'm 40. He does not have kids and has never been married. So he was coming from a totally different background. And he's also older than me. He'd been single a lot longer. And he was just kind of like very honest with me. And he said, well, I'm not dating anybody else. And so that was a little bit of pressure too, of like, oh, I
Yeah.
know that he's focused on just me. And here I am, dating other guys at
Mm.
the same time. And so it was cool because we had a conversation about it, where I said, and this was just circumstantial, I had a trip coming up with a guy friend where I was going to go meet him on a tropical island, actually, in like 3 weeks, from after I
Wow.
met this new guy. And so I was really honest with him. I said, for example, I'm about to go share a hotel room with this guy. Like, whether or not anything happens in that hotel room, like, I was just trying to be as
Mm.
honest as I could. And it's interesting that this becomes one of the ways that you can distinguish what kind of man you're with, because
Mm-hmm.
he said, there is no way I would take that away from you. There is no way I would tell you not to go on that trip. Like, you got to go on that trip. That was his response. And he said, whatever happens on that trip, of course, that might play into, um, I don't remember how he said it, but it was basically he acknowledged he could get hurt by it, right? That he
Mm.
acknowledged that was a really vulnerable thing for him to say yes, that of course you should go on this trip with another guy. But wow, did I watch that going, you are exactly the kind of man that I would want, right? For a man who could say, that he doesn't want to take any opportunities away from me, that he wants me to live my best life, kind of thing. And so, it was actually while I was on that trip and we were on the phone together that's when he claimed me and was just like, even while you're gone, like, I just can't stop thinking about you and I just miss you and love you so much. And so, the entire speech that came
Mm.
out ended up being in part because of this trip that I decided to go on for myself and that he encouraged me to. So,
I want to share real quick. I know we're coming up to
yeah,
our time, but real quick, String and I actually had a similar situation because I was funneling when I met him, and our story. We like had the worst sex and blah blah. But
yeah,
when I met him, I was single and I was actively dating, so to say, and I was actually actively being involved. Not in a relationship, but just like texting, sexting, whatever. I was
yes,
open with a man, with another man, and as I was seeing String, and talking to different men, whatever. This guy, he was in the US, I was in Mexico at that time. He decided to come and see me in Mexico. Oh, I think it was Brazil. I can't remember, Mexico, whatever. And I was like, okay, like, you
Yes.
want to come see me? Great. And so he booked his tickets, let's say in 3 weeks' time. But little did I know that, like similar to your story, that in these
Right.
3 weeks, String and I got completely head over heels with each other.
Yes.
And I still wasn't like, there was no claim from String's side. I wasn't in a relationship. So I was dating. And I was very open with String about, hey, there's somebody coming to see me. And he knew that. So I was totally honest about, there's not, when we talk about funneling, I think a lot of women say, oh, should I like manipulate or hide or
No.
whatever? No. Yeah, if I'm not in a relationship, I'm single and I'm dating. And this is what really propels men to, you're absolutely right. You will see, like I asked String, obviously we were married and already had our first child. I'm like, weren't
Yes.
you intimidated by the fact that, and he's like, no, in fact, it gave me even a more stimulus to go after you, because I knew that you are an amazing woman and you're on the market of dating. And so you can really test for that. I mean, don't go
Right.
manipulating, testing or whatever. But, when you are dating other men, this is a great opportunity for the guy who wants to be with you to step up and say, okay, what's going on here? I know you're seeing other men and I wouldn't take that away from you, whatever. So there's an element of competition there where, the best man wins kind of a thing. And you
Yes.
really see his character, because what happened with us, like that guy did arrive and I literally like came from String's apartment to meet that guy. And in that moment, as I met him, I realized, oh, no, 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 no. Like
Yes.
I am, and then in that moment, String, like I know that really hurt him. Like he knew I didn't do anything, because at that point, String didn't put any claim on me or whatever, and it was kind of like we are just having fun. I'm like, okay, I'm a single woman. And that situation actually propelled a lot of things forward, just like in your situation. I mean, we did have a big fight. He basically stopped talking to me because I guess this guy came, and it was a whole, like, there was so much drama. And I just said, okay, I'm done with our Spanish classes, whatever, whatever. And then he said, no, let's meet and talk,
Yes.
because between the blah, blah, blah. And this is where actually everything happened for us. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that story, Nikki. And then the second question about your kids, how did that go?
Yeah, so like I said, I was surprised that Kevin came from such a different background. Kevin's
Mm,
the boyfriend. That he doesn't have kids, had never been married, and so I was expecting that I would probably date somebody who was in the same boat, another single parent. And so I guess that
mm,
was a little more interesting as far as all the decisions felt like they rested on me more than on him, because I had to be the one asking my kids how comfortable they were and, navigating the relationship with the ex. But one thing that's been surprising to me with a masculine man is how much he wants some of that responsibility, wants me to like include him in things. Whereas I was ready to shoulder everything myself and be like, okay, well, I'm the single mom and I'll navigate it all.
mm,
He made comments to me of like, why don't you tell me your problems so I can help you with them kind of stuff. And so um, there were some really good lessons in, oh, even when I'm trying to take radical self responsibility and, be in charge of myself, the things that I think are my problems, it was cool to see how he stepped up into like trying to figure out what relationship he wanted to have with my kids, like what it would look like on his end. And so he would tell me things about, oh, okay, I'm feeling this about this kid. And I think I could like have this kind of relationship joking around with this one or that one. Um, and so those kinds of things have
mm,
been really amazing as a single mom to just see that somebody like that, if they care about you, they want to be part of that. They want to take on those masculine roles and be part of your kids' lives and these kinds of things. And so that's been really impressive to me. And then as far as dealing with the ex, I thought, okay, like I'm going to have really good boundaries of like, I won't talk to my boyfriend about the ex and vice versa. And then again, he has surprised me of how often he wants to help me through, I thought I had to be so healed. I thought I had to like get over my
mm,
divorce before I start dating, but things come up like they just do. You're never fully healed. And so it's amazing to be with somebody who recognizes that a partnership means, yes, each person is doing their work and taking care of themselves emotionally, but he is always saying, that doesn't mean you can't lean on me. Like, that doesn't mean that I can't support you through, whether it's the ex-husband or something with your kids or whatever.
Mm.
I love that support. And so going back to, my twig kind of um, image that I got from my body, I gave the support to myself as much as I could. And so now it's like I've attracted somebody who will also support me. And that's how that all
Mm.
comes together in my mind. And it's been amazing. I'm just so, so grateful for it.
So beautiful. Thanks, Nikki, for sharing your story, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Last question before we wrap up is to all the women listening. And your story is quite amazing because you do come from, for children and divorce and all of that. There's so many layers here. And so for all the women listening who are perhaps in that same, maybe not the polyamory because that's
Yeah,
particular, but
yeah.
like women listening who are either on the verge of divorce and have the kids, and or are divorced already and they're like terrified. I know women with one child are terrified, but like let alone four. So what would you tell them in terms of, what would you, I guess, encourage them to explore, claimed, and this avenue of signing up for a discovery call, seeing if this is the right fit, and then ultimately signing up for the program and joining us?
Awesome. Yeah. For me, one of the things that really clicked with the webinar and the discovery call was realizing that this wasn't just about my marriage. It was going to impact every relationship in my life. I quickly realized it would make me a better mom to my kids. It would make me a better sister, a better daughter, a better friend. I think you talk in your webinar about like tribes of women. And I started to look around and go, oh, I don't know if I have a tribe. Like, I don't know if I've been so masculine that I haven't like connected with other women. And so for me, it was a matter of I started to let go of the outcome when I realized the only thing I could do was work on myself, and that claimed would allow me to do that. It would allow me to become a better person for every relationship in my life, so that whether this one relationship worked out or not, I could be who I wanted to be. And that was what ultimately allowed me to ride the roller coaster of, giving him as many chances as felt right to me intuitively, but also having the confidence to know that if it didn't work out with him, I was going to be okay. I would absolutely be okay. And I knew that from the beginning of the program. I just felt so confident in my ability to work through everything the program teaches and know that I was going to come out stronger on the other side, whether I came out, back with my ex-husband or found somebody that was a better fit. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So that's why you'd encourage women to sign up and join us.
it's life changing. It changes every relationship in your life for the better.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you. So for everybody listening, you could go to claim.com/apply to apply for your free discovery call, and then schedule your call to talk to one of my team members and see if this is the right fit. And then if it is, then, Nikki, I'm sure so many women are going to join because they heard your story. So I really appreciate you coming on board and sharing. So thank you so much. And we'll see you on the other side because you're still part of it all. So thank you.
Thanks. You're welcome.